Ground Zero and everything we do.
My Patriot Supply is America's leading emergency preparedness company and believe it's every person's patriotic duty to achieve true freedom from our world's increasingly unreliable and fragile systems. The best way to do this is to invest in your personal liberty because you can't rely on governments or corporations for the basics of life. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of survival products. Despite these difficult times, My Patriot Supply has kept their commitment to you with well-stocked emergency supplies. They will deliver them quickly and discreetly with friendly 24/7 customer service. Stay alert and prepared, friends. Let everyone else take tomorrow for granted. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking satanists is Vinny's jokes. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we were supposed to have from Ground Zero Radio's own Rob Davenport on the broadcast, but we've been unable to get a hold of him. So today, you just have me, the Vinmeister. And I would like to thank all of you for tuning in, especially those on Ground Zero Radio. Remember, Ground Zero Radio has like a ridiculously amazing little app that you can get on your phone. So you can listen to Ground Zero Radio and hosts like myself anywhere you go. You can even subscribe to Ground Zero Radio and get yourself in a little monthly web chat with some of the hosts from it. So you get to have like a little bit of a powwow for an hour or two with the hosts on your favorite radio network. It's such a great network, and I'm incredibly grateful to be upon it. Now, we have been doing this show for quite some time, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to have to give you, for those of you who are unaware, just a wee bit of a background on what the Vinny Eastwood Show actually is and actually does. And could you sit back for a moment and just relax? Okay, you relaxed? Good. Now think for a moment about being yourself, without apologies, without denial, without dishonesty. Can you relax and be yourself? Now you're listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show, because that's what it's all about. That's all that it's ever really been about. We've had countless guests on this show, from the biggest and the most famous, names like David Icke, and from the lowest and the most ground level, people who've never even done a radio broadcast before. We get them all on here, regardless of where they live in the world, just so long as they speak English well enough for talk radio for people to be able to understand what they're saying. kind of a bit of a nasty one. You know, I'd love to be able to speak other language. Yeah. Welcome to the Vinny Eastwood show. I don't. Or my name is Santa Claus. Oh, Santa Claus, could I please have a red fire engine for Christmas? No, you will get nothing, and you will be happy. I think the accents are about the best I can do, because this Vinny Eastwood problem, it needs to be solved. This ghastly character, Vinny Eastwood, has been threatening to expose our scumbaggery and lay waste to our plans for the world. And something needs to be done about it. What do you think we should do, Bill? Well, I think I've been working on a solution to this Vinny Eastwood problem, and we think that, as Klaus would say, we need to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood show, and we've actually developed our own Vinny scene to penetrate the show. You see, with endorsements like this from the leaders of globalism around the world, you know the Vinny Eastwood show's got good stuff going on. You know, like, bro, I just realised the other day, I don't sound like a New Zealander. One of my mates, Mrs., she sounds totally like she's from the States. Born and raised here in New Zealand. Lots of TV. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's why I don't sound like I'm from New Zealand. Lots and lots of TV growing up. Is that what we've become here? We're being shaped by the entertainments and the news speak that is crafting our accents and our understanding. I would like to say hi to people in the chat room, WCB99. Good to see you there, brother. Always a pleasure. And I mean, always a pleasure. Got Donna Slade in the Facebook chat. Good morning, Donna. And Lord Rassilon and Michael Vachon are in the YouTube chat. So if those of you who are listening live on the radio, you would like to see this visually and participate in the chat rooms of the show today, you can go to the Vinny Eastwood Show YouTube channel, Vinny Eastwood on Twitch, or facebook.com/Vinny Eastwood Show. This is where we stream the show. Now, of course, if we mention anything... Sorry about that. I have a bugging thing about censorship. If we say anything on the show, or my guests say anything that would get us pulled by the censors of Facebook and YouTube, immediately after the live broadcast, I have to pull the show and then upload them to the Vinny Eastwood Show Rumble channel and Odyssey and BitChute. So that is at least still out there somewhere. So if you have been watching on YouTube or Facebook and you're in the middle of a show and you're like, oh, what the heck happened to it? Go to the Rumble, go to the BitChute, or better yet, just go to the Twitch, because the Twitch doesn't censor us in such a manner. And I believe that this is probably one of the most difficult things for new people getting into this movement. Let me just deep dive you a little bit on what the truth movement is, what progress it's made, and where we're heading, kind of thing. So, the truth movement really has been built upon the bones of our ancestors that you may not even be related to, people like the late Jordan Maxwell, or the late Rosa Corey, or even the late Bill Hicks and George Carlin. People work their lives to tell others the truth that they have discovered, and those people who are willing to listen and engage with that truth
are the ones who benefit from it generations afterwards. And we are living in the remnants of their decaying bones. Remembrance and acknowledgement is something that I believe is quite necessary to a large degree in your involvement in the truth movement. Now, that's where it came from, and it started to evolve into this different thing, and Michael has pointed out William Milton Cooper as well as one of those people who we owe, I think, probably the bulk of the existence of this movement to. People who got out on radio first, the people who put out books first, the people who started YouTube and that kind of thing, podcasting. As the new technology comes out, truth has become easier to access and easier to create content in regards to. Now, there was a sweet spot, this golden era of non-censorship and technological advancement from the early 2000s, maybe say 2006 and 7 onwards, to about maybe 2017. There was that decade of what we call the golden era of YouTube, what I call it anyway, because you could go to YouTube and find anything, any piece of information that you wanted to talk about, no matter how controversial, it was there, ready for you to access. And I wanted to also acknowledge Kiwi Radio, who are simulcasting this show alongside Ground Zero Radio as well. Now, after that period ended, we had a significant amount of people who had come and gone. And this is what happens when you're devoting yourself to a cause, as the cause will ultimately betray you. Okay? Because it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the cause. You understand? And the more you dedicate yourself to it, the more the cause will take from you and not give back. All right? That may sound very cynical and very dark. And that is the mark of a journalist, as the late Evelyn Gilbert told me, is to be jaded and cynical. When you have absorbed this information for not just your first 10,000 hours, but when you're into your 20th and 30th and 40th thousandth hours of interviews and documentaries and podcasts and things of that nature that you're absorbing, you have a significant quantity of valuable information within your head that you now know well enough that if somebody asks you questions about it, you'll be able to rattle off answers. Just like that. This is the processing that you have to go through, and that was probably much easier during those golden years, the 2007 to 2017 years of YouTube, pre-deplatforming, pre-censorship, and pre-demonetization. Now, we have a completely different landscape now from the golden era. So anybody who's trying to make a name for themselves in truth is going to find it significantly more difficult than those perhaps back in the golden era. But this dovetails with a second dynamic, which is the implacable progress of the New World Order. When you're paying attention for a long period of time at what the New World Order is doing, what their agendas are accomplishing, you will begin to see significantly a lot of people getting themselves into the movement who are no longer part of the movement. People like Jason Burmis, for example, the creator of a documentary called Loose Change, who, last I spoke to him, decided he was just going to work in a bar. Right? Now, I believe we had Ralphie calling in for a second there, so I'm going to have to take that call in a moment. So nowadays you have problems with the censorship, and also the culture has changed. Right, the culture can be changed very, very quickly in just a matter of weeks of sustained propaganda. An entire culture and an entire people can be engineered to believe a certain thing. You know this to be true. You've seen it very recently. It happened in 2001 after the 9/11 attacks as well. The global media has the capacity to change culture almost immediately. Doesn't matter how many 100 years your culture has been around. It suddenly is different now because of that period of sustained propaganda. So now, if you're coming out and you're trying to tell the truth, you're doing it to an incredibly brainwashed population. And if you look at the analytics, and Michael's also just pointed out Michael Moore as a disinformation specialist. I'm not sure if I'd use the term disinformation specialist, but we'll judge that down to the gamete of opinion, shall we, Michael? But I think I do think there's plenty of people out there who are not 100% sane. Because if you believe in socialism, like really, really, truly believe it, you're insane. Okay? Period. You're a member of a cult. That's what it means, basically. You have that cult belief in religion. And anybody who has that cult belief in the religion of government, I really I can respect other opinions that they might have and debate with them on those things. But on this, there's no debate. They're wrong. I'm right. And I'm not right because I did my research and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm right because I looked at the evidence and I've spoken to the what you might consider some of the greatest and deepest researchers in the world about this. And they've shown me even more evidence than I discovered on my own, to the point where it becomes undeniable. You know, like if you're thirsty, drinking water is a good idea, you know, undeniable. It's pretty straightforward, right? You're not you're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Government is a bad thing. Period. Anybody who believes it isn't is operating under a delusion. Period. Okay? It's quite simple. And there's nobody who's going to come and save you either. Nobody who's going to come and like totally inform you and save your ass at the end of the day. Some people think Trump is coming to save them. And this is where the truth movement changed. The truth movement changed when you had a number of different entities that had not existed before suddenly came on the scene. Trump was one of them. The QAnon phenomenon was another. And Flat Earth. I believe I might be forgetting one particular dynamic, if you could pop that in the chat room, which up until that point in time when these entities appeared on the scene and grew in popularity, there was a thing called the truth movement. It then devolved, and I use that word operatively because it wasn't a natural evolution, it was a devolution, into a freedom movement. Now, you might think that, Vinny's poo-pooing freedom. No, freedom's all good, but you can't have it without truth. The truth comes first. Okay? Truth, love, and freedom. Truth, love, and freedom. Truth, love, and freedom. Don't have truth, you can't have real love. You don't got real love, you can't have no freedom. Got no freedom, you can't get no truth. Okay? That goes around in a circle right there, but truth is always where it starts. Truth orders chaos. And if you're confused about something, about anything, like, for example, my friend in the chat room, Teresa, is a biological woman. Obviously not a confused person, I'm just making a joke there. It's because the intelligence community has been created and deployed for one purpose specifically: to confuse the enemy. During World War II, the enemy was Germany. So they'd hijack trains full of mail bound for German high command. They'd open all the letters, change little details, and then put the train back on the tracks and send those letters into Germany. So when people were opening these letters and finding out where their troops were or whether or not they could trust the guy down the hall, they didn't know what was going on. Such confusion. And that made them incapable of defending themselves. And after World War II, the OSS changed its name to the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. And their enemy changed too. It changed to you. It changed to you, me, and us. To confuse us is their job. If we're not certain about what to do, if we're not certain about what we're up against, they win. By default, more or less. That's the difficulty that we're dealing with now. So if you look at the demographics on, say, YouTube channels or your podcasts and things of that nature, the majority of those people will be over 30 years of age, and the majority of the people over the 30 years of age will be over 60 that actually listen to your shows and podcasts and things of that nature. Not what you would consider fighting age. I mean, they are fighting age, but and I don't want to say that this is a bad thing or devalue or anything like that. The problem with the left is that they're able to indoctrinate the youth, because the youth are stupid. They can be lied to, they can be misled, and they've got heck of a lot of energy, so they can accomplish a lot for those liars and deceivers when they've recruited the best and the brightest of the youth, who don't know their a-hole from their elbow, into getting their work done for them, right? Just like the police. I mean, when you see an older police officer, that's somebody you should be reasonably afraid of. Okay? Because they've been in it for a long time and they haven't quit. Which means they are either so desperate to stay in that they want to keep doing that horrible work of suppressing and lying and hurting ordinary people. And then there's also those people who actually really enjoy it. Okay? And this is the problem with the movement in general, is we're all attention seekers. Okay? We've got knowledge to share, we've got skills that we can do, and we've built up this knowledge and we've built up these skills as a means of getting attention for ourselves. The attention that mummy and daddy or the teachers or our friends never really gave us. And when we became isolated as a result of being the only person in our family or our circle of friends or something like that that actually knew the truth, who was actually interested in it and actually wanted to have some kind of a template for how to tell fact from fiction, you get so depressed at the isolation that it can lead to mental illness. And you can see this in the chat rooms and things of this nature. And Debbie Lacey's just joined us in the YouTube chat. G'day. And we've got Chris Callahan in the chat room and Facebook saying that they've now got police protecting the rainbow crosswalks. For those of you in the international audience who don't know, New Zealand's like heavily infiltrated by socialists, and this trans, gay, whatever motif, if you could call it that. I call it a demonic incursion into the realms of man by dark gods, but I digress. They've got these crosswalks, right, and instead of the black and white zebra crossing that you might have, they're now painting it all rainbow, and a group of people who have been alleged to be linked with the Bishop Brian Tamaki, who is incidentally calling for and supporting Billy TK's inquiry into the pandemic response, have been painting over these crosswalks with white paint. And I think there's a lot of people who don't recognize just how dangerous things are starting to get. The guy who filmed me getting arrested, the only person who actually did that and continued while I was in handcuffs being marched away to the police van, was Jonathan Clark, who later became Liz Gunn's cameraman from Free New Zealand. And I gave him an award, and also Justin from Counterspin, the Exposing Scumbaggery Awards 2024, where I engraved a piece of wood and oiled it and nailed one of my old keyboards that had they get about 2 years of use, I think, the amount that I was using them, just making hundreds and hundreds of videos a year. To that, and just as recognition for the work that they do. And I was looking on his Facebook feed the other day, and he had a video of this guy. I'm pretty sure he was American, quite possibly Canadian. You know, it's difficult for other people in the rest of the world to tell the exact difference until you say water or air, you know. And he didn't say either of those things during the broadcast, so hence the difficulty. However, the psychosis, this kid with a megaphone is talking about the truth out the window of his van as they're driving by, window open. And this guy comes off the side of the street. It's like totally in his face, telling him to shut the F up, and starts picking up his own bicycle. This guy's using his own bicycle as a weapon, trying to break the guy's window. He's trying to take the megaphone off him. And this is how triggered people can be, how psychotic they can be. I've been assaulted before in the course of doing my job, speaking the truth about 9/11 or chemtrails, whatever. And yeah, man, there are some crazy, indoctrinated people out there who are just plain old dangerous. So getting into the movement now, I mean, have you guys ever heard of the brown shirts? Okay, the Nazis used to use them to beat up their political opposition. Somebody was on the street talking about how great communism was and how bad fascism was. All of a sudden, all these guys in these brown shirts would just show up and beat the crap out of them and burn their leaflets and smash their wagon to pieces or whatever, you know? How did you get 97% popular support, Hitler? Oh, well, we didn't allow any opposition. Okay? And that's what's happening now is, indeed, people are fighting back against these zebra crossing, gay rainbow whiteout public displays. And they're now, for example, it's illegal to deface public property, right? Okay, so if there's a rainbow thing there and everybody's like, okay, cool, we spent heaps of taxpayers' money on that for all the different paints and what have you, just to show how great we are at people becoming extinct by not having any actual children. Then if you white that out, that's an offence, all right? That's bad, right? And because you just don't agree with that ideology, that going extinct and being in a difficult situation because of that, you have to look again at how the law is equally applied. For example, people have been, quote unquote, vandalizing the main roads in Wellington, the capital of New Zealand, by doing impromptu big rainbow crossings and stuff like that as a form of protest. All right? So it's like you take over the government and then people protest you and then you go even harder. Right? That's the situation we're in. Just beaten into submission. Just keep doing what you're doing, and if people don't like it, do it even harder. And do it even more viciously.
I guarantee you there's so many people out there who are just nasty, full of vile hatred. And I'm kind of like, whatever. Now, Joe has asked in the chat room, thoughts on the solar eclipse on Y2K again. Look, I got 3 thoughts about that. Number 1, let's say it happens. Everything goes dark. I remember G. Edward Griffin talking about the Transformers, not the Michael Bay variety, but the ones that carry your power from the power lines and transform it all, and so that it doesn't, blow out everything as it transmits the electricity. Now, each of the power transformers that we have on the power lines around the place, there's interlaced stations, are custom. They've got very specific loads. So that means they're not mass-produced. So if something did happen, it wouldn't be a manner of just getting a factory going and then manufacturing all the transformers out for everybody and then getting the grid back online step by step. No. You'd be out of power for months and months and months, maybe even years. And G. Edward Griffin talked about this. He says that one of the priorities, there's a guy who wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island. He wrote A World Without Cancer, spoke at the John Birch Society, interviewed former KGB agents. This guy's pretty high up there in terms of credibility. He said that one of the main priorities we should really be thinking about is how to ensure against such an event, an EMP blast that wipes out the power grid. Because if we don't insulate those transformers that are around our nations, when they go down, they might never come back up. All right, and we're gone, we're dusted. Because have a look at all those people who need electricity to breathe just on the occasion. I remember I was at Resolution Festival, and one of my listeners came up to me, and he had a bald head, and he just got a tattoo on his head that says vegan. And I said to him, hey, do you know how you can tell if somebody's a vegan? And he go, how? And I go, don't worry, they'll frickin' tell you. And anyway, there was this lady in a wheelchair there who needed a breathing device while she slept in her van. And I wasn't a volunteer or anything. I was just there with a free ticket. But I helped him dig a trench all the way from the power transformer near the kids' area, so the kids wouldn't trip over the cable, and ran that cable back to her van. And I was talking to her, and she was actually very much involved with the anti-Agenda 21 movement, and she was involved in it since 1992. That was when the thing was actually signed. I didn't even hear about it until maybe 2005, 6, or something like that. So there's been a lot of people in this world who have been really fighting this stuff a long time. And we haven't made a heck of a lot of progress, it feels like sometimes, right? I mean, if you look objectively, what could we accomplish back in the day versus what can we accomplish now? Man, the amount of people that are out there spreading the truth online. I remember a time, a decade, in fact, where I was the only one in this country who was doing radio and video and web. We had a few people who were doing video. We had a couple people doing radio, and we had a couple of people that had websites, and that was it. And I was the only one that was doing them all simultaneously. And now we have a whole array of people in New Zealand doing that. Now, I think why is that? I want to know. Why is that? Is it because the people who are more freedom-minded are usually more anti-lefty? Because the lefty's more pro-tyranny, but the thing is the right wing's been captured too, the blue voters.
And it seemed that I went to countless protests with socialists against the right-wing John Key, former Federal Reserve banker, by the way. And I noticed that after tyranny came hard in New Zealand, they were nowhere to be seen. They were not protesting any of it. Okay? Where they used to protest against selling state assets or selling out this, that, or the other, they suddenly were like, oh, we're in charge now. Good. I'm just going to sit back and let the country complete its flow into tyranny. And it did. We now live in a communist dictatorship. I mean, theoretically we always have. But, yeah. The one-eyedness. You know, people don't have the capacity to see both sides of the argument because they're emotionally invested in one side of it only. I'm correct, and I don't have to learn anything. Stop. Just take a breath. Oh, I was being a cult indoctrinated idiot. Exactly. All right. Just stop doing that, please. Start looking at things objectively, and then you might freaking get somewhere. Man, last night I was filming these people who giving their evidence for the Independent Citizens COVID inquiry. And there's a lot of real horror stories, man. Yeah. A lot of real horrible stuff. And we can't air any of it, of course. And the investigative team is like, whoa. You know? Former judges, former military, former, high-ranking individuals who basically are the few that could be offered money to do the wrong thing and would say no. The few who would see the right thing to do and see massive consequences for doing the right thing and then doing it anyway, right? Very, very humbling, some of the support that has come out there for this inquiry. And I think that there's something about it that really draws people, because there's a human need for justice, isn't there? If somebody's committed a crime against you that caused harm or loss, you feel an innate sense of injustice if that situation is not compensated. Like I've got a confession to make. I've been a bit of a dick sometimes. Okay, especially to people at bars or something like that. And it takes me like a few seconds before I realize, oh my God, I was being a bit of a dick. And I'll say to them that I owe them an apology and I owe them reparation, and I'll get them a drink or something of that nature. And then suddenly like the dynamic changes. And I like that about myself if I've done something wrong, because I'm not an angel, I'm not a saint. I'm a human man, and we're deeply flawed. And being honest about the things that we have done and apologizing and making reparation for it makes things so much better, so that the person is not sitting there in constant resentment that they haven't gotten any justice. Now, that's not the case when it comes to, worldwide enslavement and scumbaggery, though, is it? Because very rarely do we get to see any of these people brought to justice. Debbie Lacey says that when she was handing out good info about it, she had people yelling and spitting at her. All right? That's exactly what I was talking about before. These people are absolutely cult indoctrinated. You ever see that wide-eyed look of madness on somebody when you mention climate change. I saw it on my cousin Lucy Lawless, the former Xena warrior princess and stuff like that, when I asked her about climate change back in the day. And it's scary, I think, because it means that these people are all around you, and it's only going to take one snitch, next door neighbor, somebody at the supermarket or something like that, and boom, you're in a concentration camp for the rest of your life, right? That's what I'm starting to contemplate and be concerned with, because there's a lot of people, who have their faith. And I use the word faith operatively because faith is what you have in a religion, not in facts. You know facts. You don't have faith in them. Science, sciare, from the Latin, to know. That's different from believing. Now, when we have the ability to decipher fact from fiction, it becomes much more difficult for people who rely on deception and coercion to get away with what they want. Because could you imagine back in the day if the Russians or something like that were coming into a street to take everybody's provisions and build themselves a little camp there and kick everybody out of their homes and stuff like that, like in Afghanistan in the 80s or whatever. And if the people there had known about it beforehand, had prepared for it, made traps, choke points, so on and so forth, and let them know, hey, look, you can attack us if you want, you can try and kill us if you want, but we're prepared to die. We're prepared for that. We will do it, and we will take you with us. So the question is, do you want to die? Are you prepared to die? Do you have that much faith in your cause? This would be the ultimate world, I think, if everybody, everywhere, was absolutely, at all times, willing to stand up for their beliefs and not back down from them, to the point where if somebody's using violence and murder against you, you have the ability to eliminate that threat. I think that would make a better world, frankly, or personal sovereignty, if everybody should be armed. All right? A lot of people don't like, what are you doing about there being guns everywhere? Yes, but have a look at the places in the world where gun ownership is mandatory. Switzerland, for example. Now, we're having a call here from Ralphie. Ralphie.co.nz, I believe.
Yes, Vinny Eastwood, the most important, historic, iconic man of New Zealand in our time. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm borderline and on fabulous, maybe a little bit fantastic.
Well, this is a very first of all, I just want to congratulate you on what you're doing and how very much appreciated it is for our community. And you are an historic man, after all, now, with the recent trials and tribulations of the recent years. And we're all in this together. Community is key. So I'll be really quick with my elevator pitch today, because just like Warren Buffett, he plans his meetings in 6-minute increments. Are you ready for some shell bombs?
Go for your life, son.
Well, mate, I've landed my first public sector role. It was a contracted role, so 6 months to cover people's leave. And it's coming to an end. It has pros and cons because the salary is amazing. And no wonder public, sector workers want to keep their jobs, because you do very little for quite financial gain. And I noticed that straight from the go, to a point that, if you were executive level, you'll be earning $250,000 a year, right? That's a lot of money for most people, 4 or 5 times the normal salary. I've been working in a joint operational centre. Basically, it first started about a year before lockdown. what is this operational centre? Security cameras, CCTV, 3,000 plus cameras across Auckland alone and growing. What's it intended for, or what's the sort of front game that they tell the public what it's about? Well, it's to protect the assets, such as public transport, council buildings, everything like that, all the assets of the government to be, monitored. But I've seen some dark sort of moments during my time. You see a lot of incidents, self-harm, people jumping trains. You see a lot of protests, which, by the way, our media team we have a one voice policy. We have to call it a public gathering. So if you ever see any government officials or anything like that talking about public gatherings, it's likely a protest because it's happening on a weekly basis. But what I notice is the mainstream media is not reporting it. And that's probably key since, things like Fair Go have disappeared from our mainstream media, TV3, all due to funding, of course. I wonder if it's because, Jacinda stopped funding them, but whatever.
DK in the chat says the speed cams are owned by a subsidiary of the CIA. I wonder if we can back that up.
Here's the interesting thing about the operational centre, right? So we have offices in North Shore, Albany, Ellerslie, and growing. Okay, they also have a Wellington operational centre as well, which covers most of the South Auckland. I'm a bit of a curious guy, and I kind of know what's happening. So, I walk around the office, and everyone's sort of in their own silos, focusing on different projects. And I kind of go, what are you up to? Tell me about your role. One person, they could be operating, let's see, the bridges. Here's a little switch to put the bridge up and down, which I'll get to a point in a moment. And, other things like that. And what I've realized is we all kind of only have part of the puzzle of what we're told what we're doing. So the security cameras, I told you, 3,000 cameras designed to protect, say, public transport, things like that. I've seen, and we usually have police officers walking in the building every day. They're one of our, stakeholders. And they always go, the new recruits always go, 1 year before lockdown, this wasn't around. This is really advanced to what we used to have, because you see all those police officers actually have remote access now to all those cameras. It's had some great results, such as like if there was a homicide or something, it might give tip-offs. But I've also seen sort of like a real-time operational line where there's a incident room, something's happening, and it's not necessarily about the assets, protecting the assets. It might be like to spy on, say, I noticed there was lots of police in an incident room spying on some gang members who were sort of lurking around a motel. So I don't really know what that was about. So these incident rooms are designed to act in real time. So how we had that K Road thing recently where someone painted over it?
Yeah.
And you said, that they have, boots on the ground and things like that. They have 24/7 operational teams looking into whatever they want. Do you remember, about the Pegasus system about surveillance? You know about Pegasus? Of course you do.
No, it was not specifically. It reminds me of Project Pegasus and the jump room
Project
programs.
Pegasus. But I just assume, but But anyways, Project Pegasus is about where it can monitor. Well, it can listen to all your text messages, social media, pull out keywords of what you're talking about, start profiling you into who you are. Maybe that's why you get things like shadow banning and things like that for certain individuals and points of views. It's designed so that it was designed so that in Greece in the Olympics, they had some terrorist activity. How the CIA sales pitched it was designed to stop things like that. However, it can actually turn around, and if you've got a specific target in mind, say a political leader or anything along those lines, you can start gathering up materials on them. It could be blackmail, It could be anything along those lines. It could be social networks, right? And really take that into your advantage of what your strategy is. So that's what Pegasus is. Same thing with all these cameras. If you look around now, remember none of this really happened, and we were wondering what happened was all the construction around CBD. I remember us talking about, well, what's all this construction about? It was them planning operational centers like this, 3,000 plus cameras, and now it's been activated, which means welcome to bloody Truman Show.
Everybody on camera all the time.
Facial recognition, social profiling, and that's why I think that's why you are a historic person, and you got to celebrate that a little bit, because not everyone has that sort of influence in their broader community. But that's what
actually,
happens.
I was just thinking about that this morning. When I got arrested, I had like maybe 40, 50 people around trying to prevent people from arresting me. Okay, that's power. And what it reminded me of is the movie Malcolm X, where one of his Muslim brothers was arrested, and Malcolm then organized, I think it was 40 well-dressed Muslim men to march outside that police station in a form of protest. That is what tipped off the police that Malcolm was a person with power that needed to be destroyed. All right,
Well,
and if I may finish
Yeah.
that point, the problem with being somebody of historical significance is sooner or later you're going to just be history, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like my life's work, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, you still have friends, and community is key. So I'm glad you're still reaching out to your community, which whether it be text groups or anything like that, something that's a little bit out of the algorithm. Because I've been doing similar things. I actually found a way around the social media algorithm for a while. You know, I regularly guest on another influencer called Mike in the Night, realmikemartins.com or kiwiradio.nz also have replays of his show. And he was talking about, you know, the team of 100. Or if you're a really big influencer, it's actually 300. 300 is the sort of normal number that most people can coordinate in terms of social gatherings. You were at one point, I remember back when you first started, you had a New Zealand audience, but you had a really big American audience of like, 40,000 people. You're doing it full time. I remember, and I was listening to some of your past episodes where the IRD were on you where they were saying, you know, was this a business or things like that? So let's not get into that a little bit.
No, actually, that is an interesting point. Interestingly enough, ladies and gentlemen, if somebody gives you a gift, that's not taxable income.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But see, that was what the IRD ladies actually said to me, and they let me off 7 years of unpaid tax because I hadn't earned enough to actually be taxed technically. And so I think that people make a lot of mistake when they merchandise and they try to get money off of people using the conventional business methodology. No, truth is a community service, and it needs to be treated just like a Salvation Army, but for the mind.
Absolutely, and that's what we're doing. There's more to life than it just
which reminds me, I'm so sorry to ask, ladies and gentlemen, but I just got an $80 ticket from the New Zealand police for speeding on my way back from interviewing all these people who've been injured by the government's schemes. So
here's a little tip for you. Maybe you should be self-employed. There's a really good app called Henry, HNRY. Just like small enterprises that are actually doing solutions instead of the traditional government ones. Because, if you've ever tried to deal with IRD, they call from anonymous numbers, and they're basically bums on seats and don't know what they're bloody hell talking about. So there's been some good tech companies coming up with a solution like Henry, and actually taking on the more traditional models of what our tax is meant to go towards.
Yeah.
I've got a few more talking points.
Well, when the IRD ladies came to me, at first it was different, but when they were leaving, they were saying things like, wow, that's really inspiring, and like almost and almost crying, and the older of the two goes, I've never had a hug from a client before.
Yeah. Well, they're just like us, but they're the isolated silos. They are, anything above their pay grade, they're not meant to know. And that's how what I've noticed is a lot of these government agencies work. So, 1 out of 3 of their staff members, for example, are temporary workers. There's a really good Vice documentary about permatemps. So permatemps are people that have been working for the same thing, but never get full-time, so they don't get the normal, benefits and things like that. So a lot of these are contractors living day to day. So, yeah, you got to keep that in mind. What I've noticed as well, I've got a few more talking points if you don't mind. What's the time, by the way?
We're already past showtime. I think, yeah. But we can go a little bit longer. But I'm very, very tired. I'll tell you why.
Okay. Well,
last night after filming, I decided to drive home to Auckland from Tauranga, traditionally a 3-hour job, right? Halfway there, I get stopped because State Highway 2 is closed. Now, what you might not know is that if State Highway 2 is closed, there is no other way to get to Auckland, right? So I had to go like an hour and a half out of my way in order to get home last night. It was just brutal.
You've reminded me of something. I've got a big warning for everyone in Auckland. So we've got the Joint Operational Centres with 3,000 cameras. Not only that, they've started doing sort of like emergency incident planning. So something's going to be happening. So all those what they call choke point avenues, such state highways and things like that, they will know how to exactly lock everything down so that no one can get away without passports or things like that from their 15-minute grids. That is, we started training on that. And so with training comes implementation at some point. Because you don't bloody train to do nothing, right? So that's a big warning. There will be no out. It'll be like North Korea, essentially. So what's the end game here? Community. Keep that up, because that's what's... we're all a little blip in here. The solar eclipse is happening tonight, right? In North America, you know about that?
Yeah, somebody was telling me about it yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, well, animals might start freaking out or whatever today, but there's bigger things, and I think we've been sold a lie with the whole consumerist thing. It's all a big lie. There's more to it. Even if you're here for a short time, 80, 90 years if you're lucky, the influence you give to others, the hope, the community, the laughter, that's what people take away. When they're in their deathbed, they don't talk about the stuff that they have. They talk about the people that they've met. And you have been a big part and imprint to many people, myself included, and that's why I regularly donate to you and everything, because it's just a little koha, it's not going to pay you $80 ticket. But at the same time, it's just a little koha to say, hey man, I've been thinking about you lately. And that's all it is.
Cheers, brother. I really appreciate that. Every little bit helps, they say. Speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, on screen, for those of you who are watching on the YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, there is a KiwiBank number, and there are PayPal buttons, and I'm back on Patreon. I haven't gotten a Patreon yet. I used to have, I think, $1,500 a month coming through Patreon before they deplatformed me without even telling me they deplatformed me. I just signed in, it wasn't working. No email from them, nothing. And we also have Super Chat re-enabled. I used to make nearly $3,000 a month off of that before they deplatformed me, and it's taken me over 2 years to get back to 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, donate to the Vinny Eastwood Show, ladies and gentlemen. Start up those automatic payments today if you can, because every little bit helps to pay off those speeding tickets. So
yeah, absolutely. Hey, we could talk for hours. We're friends, both of I, and we have a lot in mind. There's a lot of moving parts in our world right now. And, we might not be able to solve it on a global imprint, but we can maintain communities. And that's my takeaway from this call today, okay?
All right. Cheers for your time, Ralphie.
You have a good one, brother.
All right. KiwiRadio.nz, is it?
Yes, it is. And we still replay your older stuff too. You have your voices. You're like the Pharrell Williams. It's never changed.
I was listening to Pharrell Williams last night, and he's like collaborated with so many artists, and I was like, hey man, I really like it. I actually do like it. Being the Pharrell Williams of the truth movement, ladies and gentlemen, the Vinny Eastwood Show.
All right, brother. I'll leave you to it. You keep doing what you do.
Cheers, brother. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming back to your chat room stuff and what have you. Also, poor old DKspiracy, if you guys want to go follow him on D Live so that he can have a few more listeners there, that would be great. He plays all the stuff that I don't play because he's unafraid to be censored, all right? Really, you want some real kind of like, oh my goodness, I feel very naughty watching this, I'm getting so much black knowledge. Yes, go to the DKspiracy channel on D Live. DK was one of the only people who actually had a show in New Zealand that actually interviewed me after my arrest. One of the only ones. So I'm I don't forget things like that. I really don't, and I massively appreciate DK, and he is like the best mod anybody could ever have. And speaking of people who I don't forget, there's another person I was thinking about the other day who's just appeared in the chat room as well, is Benny Mac. Benny frickin', you see this green screen behind me? How it looks nice and what have you? There's lights that are set up in here. In addition to that green screen, Benny helped me do all that. He came in and he set it all up and we tested and blah, blah, blah. Man, without Benny Mac, without DKspiracy, without you, the listener, and all the people that contribute in all of these amazing and various ways, without Ground Zero Radio, Mike Sherwin, helping to produce the show. It's not just the Vinny Eastwood Show. And I just realised, if maybe I should have realised this a lot earlier. But if I'm not the centre of attention, at least for a little bit, at some point, to just be given a little bit of time in the sun, I feel sad. And maybe that's what the show was really about, is by giving other people their time to shine on the radio and that kind of thing. I felt like I was earning my time in the sun. And maybe that's just a bad personality characteristic. Either that, or when people are paying attention to me, I've actually got something to give you that is worth your attention. A bit of knowledge here or there, a bit of insight, a bit of a chuckle. These things are important, I believe, and are worth our attention. And that's why I paid so much attention to people who I admired and wanted to be more like and what have you. And now there's people who admire me and want to be more like Vinny Eastwood and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, just be yourself. That's what I'm doing. I remember when I went out, me and James Corbett were talking about this on a show back in the day. About how when we started, we were inspired by and trying to emulate and be like Alex Jones, and I realized after a while that wasn't me, that wasn't my style. And James realized that after his first podcast, he was like, oh, because we found our own style, and you guys can too. And if you don't know, this is the most important thing, though. If you want to broadcast but you don't know how, and you don't want to spend 10,000 hours learning it, and you just want it to be set up so that you can just press a button and just go live, talk to me. Go to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, go to the contact page, say, Vinny, I want to be taught how to do all the stuff that you can do. And I can teach you. It won't be easy, okay? And I will expect at least some form of compensation for it. I mean, I looked at how much I got paid for driving, what was it? 3 hours plus 4.5 hours plus working for about 5 hours. It's about maybe 10 hours work for about $150 or something like that. That's I think that's less than $10 an hour. Actually, no, it's a little over $10 an hour, I think. So yeah, if anybody wants to pay me slightly more than that for anything, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, and also because nobody else would employ me. Bro, there's just nobody out there who wants somebody like me working for them, because it's not because I'm difficult to work with. I'm fun to work with, and I make things fun and easier, and I do it in a relaxed way. So if you want to learn in a fun, easy, and relaxed way how to do your live streaming, setting up OBS Studio, how to operate your Mac properly, how to create your website, and it's not a how-to either. We actually do it. It's like, oh, you want a live stream, huh? Okay, go to obsproject.com, download that. Yep. Okay, now install it. All right, now type that one in. Click that button over there. So you're just in the process of doing it. No explanation is necessary. No jargon is necessary. Just the step-by-step instructions until bring, you've got it frickin' ready to broadcast. And because in the process of doing this, you will often repeat certain tasks, copy, paste. By the time you're actually finished the session, not only is everything set up ready to go, but you've repeated the task so many times during that session that you don't need anybody's help again because you can't forget it, like muscle memory. It's a really empowering thing to be able to broadcast for yourself on your own volition. And that reminds me of Ground Zero Radio, groundzero.radio, ladies and gentlemen. Go there and you can get yourself the Ground Zero Radio app, which they've been telling us to do. And they also told me to make a little Vinny Eastwood ad qualifier and something like that. And I haven't been getting around to it. I've got so many things going on. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Just because you've got a lot of things going on doesn't mean you can't nail them out and what have you. I think I'm going through a personal life crisis, to a large degree. I'm sure you've all been there, where you have so many things to do, but you've kind of like been rendered inert by the stress of actually having to do them, that you don't actually wind up doing them and reducing your stress. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Don't pretend that you don't. And it's okay. All right? It's okay to not be 100%, to not be perfect. What's not okay is to deny the fact and to prevent yourself from trying to work on the fact. Now, with that being said, I wanted to, again, thank you, everybody who has ever contributed in even a minor or a major way to this show, and giving it a home and subscribing and donating. It's humbling. And maybe that's what people like me need. We just need to be humbled by the really beautiful people who help us do what we do. I've met so many of you, and man, you're all amazing. Like, really. I'm not just saying that. The stories I've heard from my listeners, the skills that they've got, the things that they've built, the places they've been, all the things that you guys do, all of you, is truly extraordinary. And I think maybe that's the reason why I'm still doing this show after 16 years. Because I don't get bored talking to you. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? You know those people who really don't know anything about anything, and they're just kind of dull, and they're not curious to find out, or something like that. And they're having these conversations about sport or cars or a movie star or some TV show or some radio personality, shock jock or whatever, and they're not really concentrating on anything of importance. And you just want to stick a screwdriver up your nostril. You know, like that. That kind of frustrating stupidity that is everywhere. It's cacophonous, isn't it? It's just morons. Just yapping all the damn time for no reason at all. Like do you realize that there's a possibility you could be quiet and think about something, or maybe listen to somebody else for a second here, bro? No, I didn't know any of that. Okay. I'm teaching you now. So you're now actually capable of ingesting that knowledge and bringing it into your sphere of awareness and shutting the hell up for a second and let somebody else talk, right? Maybe they'll fill you full of knowledge that will be useful for you. Okay, maybe that approach is a little bit on the nose and a bit too patronizing for people to really take. But at the end of the day, so angry, aren't we? You know, angry about everything. All the time. And yet, we still manage to maintain our cool sometimes, and we still manage to have a good laugh and what have you, and do the right thing, despite that kind of like festering. I think maybe we avoid people that frustrate us so, and if we're with them, we leave them because we don't want to be annoyed anymore by the cacophonous cadre of cringe-worthy characteristics that they embody. You know, it could be your partner, it could be your workmate, it could be a family member or something like that. My producer, oh man, I can't believe I didn't even remember to mention my producer in thanks to giving the show. He hasn't produced the show in nearly 10 years. But when he was producing the show, and brought me to American Freedom Radio for the first time, the best producer in talk radio in the world. All right, and I'm saying this actually very seriously. I had the best producer in the world. His name was Mitch Santel. Freaking amazing. He got me George Norrie. George Norrie, who had 29 million listeners. And my producer, Mitch Santel, got him on my show as a guest. Unfreaking believable. Who does that? Mitch Santel does that. The Mitch pitch, the magic. And you know that if somebody like that has faith in you and wants to like be your cheerleader and wave pom-poms and stuff like that, that it's important to show gratitude for those people. Like Danny Romero, for example, from American Freedom Radio back in the day, he used to be Alex Jones's producer. You know, he mentored me into this. And Jack Blood on the network at the same time used to be Alex Jones's former sit-in host. And he mentored me too. So I come from a pedigree of recognized talent. People who were really, really good at what they do, who saw the potential in the Vinny Eastwood show. That kind of gratitude that I have for that and those people is very similar to the vein of gratitude that I have to you as the listener. How dare I even question how valuable you are? You are. You're important. And the show wouldn't exist really without you. You're all beautiful. You're all wonderful. You're all loved. And you're safe here. Because we block all the trolls in the chat room. Alright. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, my fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news.
but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.